up next, we have good friend and brain scientist Thomas Campbell Arnold. He's going to talk to us about what makes fear in brain. He's going to say it a lot better than me because he, in fact, is a brain scientist. So let's try and get him on the line right now. Thank you, Discord. Shouts out Discord. Shouts out that little line of dust that won't go. Okay, chill. Hey.
Hello.
Hello, Thomas Campbell Arnold.
How you doing, sir?
Not bad. Are you on speakerphone right now?
Let me see if I can fix that real quick.
Yeah. Or just get really close to the mic.
Better?
It's slightly better. How you doing, buddy? How we feeling today?
Well, to be honest, I'm a little afraid.
Oh, me too. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything except for bees, sponges, commitment, coronavirus. But what about you? What makes you scared?
Doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is talking in front of other human beings.
Well, you're actually technically not in front of anybody. It's just the idea of you being projected over the internet.
Whoa.
Don't let that freak you out even more, though. So, Campbell, tell us, what have you come to talk to us about today? Enlighten us with your brain science. And tell us what fear is, how we can conquer it or be consumed by it. Either way, honestly, I'm up for anything. I'm not doing much later.
Well, so I think if we're going to talk about fear, we should probably start with like the origin of the word fear.
No.
So it's actually Latin for ah!
Oh, yes. It's stemming from the Greek.
But yeah, so fear is it's basic human emotions that psychologists have identified, and it's really associated with the threat, either real or imagined, of harm. And it's based in this system in your brain called the limbic system. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then probably the thing that most people are familiar with is the fight or flight response, which is rooted in the sympathetic nervous system.
Sympathetic, like when you're a nerd and care about other people?
Yes, as opposed to the asympathetic nervous system.
The antagonistic system.
The antagonistic system, which I think is primarily rooted in your body.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm made of. I'm all antagonist. But so tell me about that then. So that's where the fear comes from, and then what? Because I think we all know that fear is not just a thing that happens in your brain. It can it translates physically. It is something you truly feel.
Yeah. Well, it starts in your brain. So you take in some kind of sensory experience, right? You see Sawyer being murdered. I don't know.
Well, I mean, most people probably would not fear that. That's
and most people would be fine, but occasionally people would recognize that this is a stressful situation.
Mm-hmm.
They might get murdered. They don't really care about you, but they might get murdered.
But yeah, self-preservation.
And their adrenal glands will activate, and they'll start pumping hormones through their body that are going to help extract themselves from this situation. They're going to send, blood to the muscles. They're going to dilate your pupils so you can, see what's going on, and so you can run away, or you can punch what's coming at you.
So fear is just as much a physical reaction as it is a mental one.
Yes. And so that's the interesting thing is, nowadays, most of the things that people fear are really more psychological constructs than they are imminent dangers. We're not about to be, hunted down by a lion, but it is scary talking in front of a group of people.
Even if you can't see them.
Yeah, well, they won't eat you, but
I might.
They might not like your comments on Twitter.
Yeah, well, good thing neither of us are on Twitter. So then tell me, where does fear come from? What causes, what besides, give us an example of, possibly a study you've done or something, give us some science, Campbell.
Oh well, let's break down the fourth wall, Sawyer. We both know that you uh, are a willing participant in research on fear.
That's true. I
So
remember that.
I used to work at a cognitive neuroscience lab at Florida State, and Sawyer participated in a study that we conducted one time, um, looking at how we could maybe modulate the brain's response to fearful stimuli.
Right, right. I remember that. I was
So,
poked and prodded,
so tell me what you
electrocuted
remember.
even.
Tell me what you remember.
Yeah, so I was strapped to a chair, and I remember getting gel put all over my head, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a cap that registered my brain waves, and I had to smell a lot of test tubes and describe my response. And then there were like strange noises and faces shown to me, and I had to say on a scale of 1 to
Yeah.
10 how I felt about them. And then I was shocked with electricity, so that was fun. That was definitely worth the $50.
Yeah. So what we were actually doing there is we were trying to modulate your brain activity with that shock. So different regions of your brain communicate with each other through these oscillations, and there's one of them in particular called the alpha rhythm. Right? You like the sound of that?
Yeah, sounds cool. Sounds
So
sounds.
it's
I'm more of a beta rhythm guy, but
people that have lower alpha rhythms tend to have higher anxiety. So I could see you not being an alpha guy.
what
Um,
are you
and so
talking
what
about?
we were actually so what we were actually trying to do here in this study was we were trying to stimulate you at the alpha rhythm, okay, and see if we could increase the connectivity between different brain regions at that frequency. And what we kind of showed was that if we stimulated you and increased your connectivity, you would that change would last for up to 24 hours, um, and and you would rate stimuli as less unpleasant. So all those weird faces and nasty odors we were giving you to smell before we shocked you, you would have rated them as more negatively than after. So we think
Huh.
that this can be used therapeutically to kind of treat people that have anxiety.
Interesting. So you're just kind of tricking the mind to perceive fear in a different way.
Yeah, and we're raising kind of this natural rhythm that you have and trying to kind of accentuate it, give it a little bit more body to protect you from some of these things that you might be anxious about.
Huh.
So basically, what we did is, we made you lick batteries.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do recall that. It felt like that. So
Yeah.
tell me now, what would you say about someone our previous guest, that crazy fucking ice climbing psycho? Like how do you describe someone like that who chases perilous situations like that?
Batshit crazy, I think, is the colloquial term.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
Well, I've actually got a couple of theories about him. So
Ooh,
we
theories.
study people like Brandon in psychology. So there's actually you can't really talk about fear without talking about these really weird people that don't experience fear. So that's my first theory about what might be going on with Brendan. It's that he has severe brain damage.
You might have fallen once or twice going up
Yeah,
the
that
mountain.
textbook-sized block of ice, it didn't leave him fully intact. But
Okay, so
there's actually
what's another
there's,
theory?
there's actually this one actually has a little bit of merit. So there's people that have rare genetic disorders that cause damage to those brain regions that I was talking about that processed fear. So one of the main ones is called the amygdala. And people that no longer have their amygdalas, either because of a genetic disorder or because of surgery, they don't fear things that most people do. So they're not afraid of snakes. If you take them to a haunted house, they have no startle responses, and they also don't recognize fear in other people's faces.
Oh, so it's not even internalized. It's an externalized, like it is it's a part of like their physiology. It's
Yeah,
how the world occurs to them and how it occurs inside
exactly.
them.
They don't recognize fear.
Interesting.
Not in themselves, not in you.
That's I probably have that because, as you know, I don't fear anything except for
Yeah.
sponges
Well,
and wasp.
yeah, and that's probably not good for you, Sawyer. It actually could put you at an evolutionary disadvantage because
Oh my god.
being afraid of things is what teaches us associations with negative experiences, so that we don't repeat them. So actually,
Interesting.
being fearful is actually people think of it in a negative light, but actually, it can be a very positive thing. It's
We'll
what
take it
allows you
from
to learn.
someone who never learns from any of their mistakes ever, and in fact repeats them every weekend, and then wonder why the world's out to get me. That I'm actually probably the more evolved one. So, but put that in your science journal.
Yeah, we'll publish you as a case study.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're not the first person to tell me that actually.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually, I know a little bit about you, Sawyer, and one thing that I know is that actually you are a very fearful person, particularly when it comes to insects that can sting you
And fly.
and fly. Oh, they have to do both. So you're not afraid of like ants, just bees,
Truly not afraid of
wasps,
ants. Ants
hornets.
can hang. It's wasp and hornets and
Ah.
bees, even the ones that don't sting. I think it's the sound. I was like swarmed as a child. It was not a good time, and it stuck
Oh,
with me for a long time.
so that's interesting. Are you saying that you had an early negative experience and that you learned an association that caused you to stay away from that negative experience?
At all costs.
Wow. Science be damned.
Well, it looks like I
So,
think we.
so at all costs, I have a story about at all cost. One time, you and I were driving in my truck, heading to one of Florida's pristine swimming holes,
Oh yes,
and
I think it was a
the
puddle
windows
outside
were
the club.
down. It was the summer, and a bee flew into the window, and you attempted to get ready for this ICT word, defenestrate yourself. You
Oh
attempted
yeah.
to jump out of the window of my moving vehicle. I had to pull over on the side of the highway to prevent you from killing yourself to get away from this bee. And,
Oh,
and
I
that's
wouldn't.
when I knew that's a real fear. This kid is not messing around.
Oh, phobias. It's a real thing. And I wouldn't say I'd die. Maim is better than being stung if you've ever been swarmed by paper wasp. Look them up. They're
Yeah.
horrifying.
Well, so we actually there's ways that we have come up with treating phobias. So you can treat them with cognitive behavioral therapy, and one of the most common ways to treat them is with something called exposure therapy, which is where you start with maybe something a little bit smaller. So maybe you and I get together and we watch the Bee movie, and then you work your way progressively up to more scary stimulation. So maybe
like what?
we put you in a room with a murder hornet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those. I already feel like I'm in a room with them now that they're in the U.S.
And there's actually there's a interesting podcast going on right now called the Scaredy Cats Horror Show. So if any of you are interested in a live exposure therapy experiment, you can check out the Scaredy Cats Horror Show, where you watch one horror film a week with them, and you go from not super scary to the worst horror films in the world, and
B-movie.
and through that you will grow.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd probably start with B movie and end with B movie. That'd be as far as I can make it in that.
Well, I don't think I can make it through B movie either. So
Yeah, well,
Um,
for different reasons. All right, Campbell, is there any other science you want to share with us that maybe can help people get over their fears or just learn more about it and understand it?
yeah. So I actually have two more things. And both of these are kind of insights into maybe why Brendan isn't fearful, where we can learn from him. And so one is we have to understand why people like him enjoy being scared. And so what psychologists actually have found out is that there are people who have different sensation-seeking traits. right? So there's some people that are much more calm, reserved. They don't really try new things. They kind of like to stay in their lane. And then there's other people like Brendan who would probably snort hot sauce just because he heard that no one had done it yet.
Oh yeah, I honestly, I had to stop him a couple times. Oh wait, that was me. I just love hot sauce. But yeah, so you're telling me that like there are people that are, I mean, I guess thrill seekers. I mean, they're just
adrenaline junkies, thrill seekers. And one of the things that people think, the term adrenaline junkie comes because when you get into these kind of stressful, scary situations, you release adrenaline that helps you, get out of those situations. And people think that people are addicted to that.
Yeah, I snort it sometimes.
But actually, sometimes people like Brendan actually have lower levels of adrenaline, and they actually release more of another hormone called dopamine, which I think some people
I snort that too.
Listening to this might be familiar with. So
not listening to this. Maybe some other show, but
this magical molecule can, lead to, I believe the CDC calls it an elevated mood or high.
Yes, the CDC.
So it really relies on your ability to distinguish that something is not imminently dangerous to you. It's just scary. And once you've gotten over that, you can bring your heart back down. You can get rid of that adrenaline, and you can simmer in that nice little pocket of dopamine you found.
Ooh, I do love simmering.
Yeah. So that's my other theory. Is maybe he's not super adrenaline driven. He's actually dopamine driven.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've got one more theory.
Okay.
So he said he does cost benefit analysis, right?
Yeah.
I think he's bad at math.
Hey now. Hey. He's good at math. He knows the size of a textbook's or refrigerator-sized ice hitting him in the face.
I was amazed that there were no icebergs in between those two sizes.
Hey, that's geometry, I think.
Well, sorry, that's all the brain science that I got for you. I'm gonna get back to this Miller High Life.
Hey, hell yeah, it's Miller time. Campbell, thank you so much. Thomas Campbell Arnold is a man with 3 first names, also a brain scientist at Penn State, doing brain stuff, learning brain things, teaching us brain things. If you had, just one more thing, if you had like any advice for someone trying to overcome a fear, what would it be?
The advice that I'd give you is the same advice that my pappy gave me, which is this too shall pass. So a lot of the things that we are afraid of these days, they're not imminent threats. They're more distant threats. And if we can kind of take a step back and realize that they're not immediately going to hurt, and then we can take time to realize that they will eventually conclude, we can take some comfort in knowing that, we have control over our situation.
That's good stuff. There's something that I always keep to my mind that that runs in my mind whenever something bad happens that I want to get over really quick. Your voice goes to my head. These things, they happen.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like me, man.
Well, thanks for joining us, Thomas Campbell Arnold. You're a good friend,
a good scientist,
pleasure, and a primary resource from now on.
Yeah, and if you want to get more science updates, you can actually, I joined the bandwagon. You can follow me on Twitter at @TCampbellArnold.
There we go. He's got a Twitter now. Wow. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. Up next, more Radio Wyrd, i.e. music by me, because I'm great.